make the Piglet Sandwich, which is an original here at the American Grilled Cheese Kitchen. And this sandwich has a rosemary butter on the outside. Tillamook sharp white cheddar is my preferred cheese to use in this sandwich. It's a really unique cheese. It's delicious. We use a nice artisanal smoked ham, really high quality ham, and we also use an apple mustard, which is a very simple condiment, but one that adds like a nice, sweet, savory characteristic to the sandwich. So the first step is the rosemary compound butter. And for this, we've got our fresh rosemary. You can use dried rosemary as well. That works just fine. We're going to strip the rosemary off the branches. And the easy way to do that is to strip against the grain. And you can usually just pull it right off. I'm going to strip about 2 teaspoons of rosemary. So you can mince this up with a knife, or the way I like to do it, which is really fast, is I have a little home coffee grinder that we use for everything in the restaurant. I do fresh ground black pepper in this. We grind our herbs in this. Really wet herbs won't work so well, so don't put parsley or something like that in here. But thyme or rosemary work great. So I'm going to put the rosemary right into my coffee grinder and buzz it just for a second. And you've got some coarsely chopped rosemary. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of softened butter. You want the butter to be softened because you're going to be creaming it with your rosemary. Don't worry about making it look perfect. This is a dish that is best when it's a little bit rustic. When you've got your rosemary and butter creamed together to a nice, reasonably even softened mass, you can set that aside. And our next step is going to be our apple mustard. And the apple mustard, we of course make it by the gallon here in the restaurant, but at home you can make a small amount. It's just equal amounts by volume of apple butter, and I recommend using a very high quality apple butter, one with no sugar added. Spices are fine. In fact, spices are great, but don't use one that's got a lot of corn syrup and things like that in it. We also use a stone ground mustard. Same amount, again, by volume as the apple butter. We use Sierra Nevada stout stone ground mustard, but really any nice stone ground mustard will be perfect for this. And caramelized onions. So I'm going to weigh this out because this is the fast and easy way to do it. I've got just a home scale here. I recommend everyone get one because this is a lot easier than scooping everything out by volume. I've got here my apple butter. You will probably have this in about an 8-ounce jar. I'm going to go ahead and make a big batch of this. So I'm going to put in 2 pounds, but if you're making sandwiches at home, you might want to put in about 2 ounces. And I've got my mustard, which again, you probably have a significantly smaller jar of this at home. And I'm also going to weigh out 2 pounds of that, but you probably want about 2 ounces. Perfect. My last ingredient for the apple mustard is caramelized onions. I'm going to add 2 pounds of caramelized onions. We caramelize about 50 pounds of onions a week here at the restaurant, which takes a while. But you can do it at home in about 30 minutes. So I've got 6 pounds total. And now I'm going to transfer this into a food processor. If you don't have a food processor, this is a commercial food processor. You can use a home food processor like a Cuisinart is fine, even a blender is fine. Or if you don't have any of those things, you can just mix this stuff up and spread it on. It'll be a little chunky, but it'll work just fine. So I'm going to transfer all of this into the bowl of my food processor. We put the lid on and turn it on. And it's done when it's nice and smooth. So we're going to transfer this back into the container I weighed it out in. And when you have all this yummy stuff scraped out, we have our apple mustard. Once you've made your rosemary compound butter and your apple mustard, you can assemble your sandwich. So we've got some nice artisan levain from a local bakery, but any high quality, fresh country style bread is going to work great for this. First, butter my bread with a bit of my rosemary compound butter, using maybe half a teaspoon per side. Don't worry about those chunks of rosemary, that's the good part. And then leave my sandwich open face. Our next step is the apple mustard. So we've got our apple mustard, and remember, this is only 1/3 mustard, so we're going to use a lot of it. So we're going to have a nice thick layer. I'm using a good tablespoon per sandwich of the apple mustard. I'm then going to layer on some Tillamook vintage white cheddar, which is one of my favorite cheeses to work with. A layer of cheddar on top of my apple mustard, and then I have some thinly sliced artisanal smoked ham, and we're going to put a couple layers of our ham on, and then another layer of our vintage white Tillamook cheddar. Close up our sandwich, and we're ready to cook it. My preferred way of cooking grilled cheese sandwiches is actually open face in a hot oven, preheated to about 500 degrees, if your oven will do it, on a preheated cast iron skillet. This will toast the bread and melt your cheese all at the same time, and your sandwich will be done in about 2 minutes. You can also cook it traditionally on a skillet. If you do, because there's so much stuff in this sandwich, you want to cook it over a really low temperature and be patient. If you crank it up, you're going to burn your bread before your filling's melted. So cook it, close it up, cook it like you normally would a grilled cheese, but low temperature, and you can even cover the pan with a lid for part of this. That'll help keep the heat inside and help melt your cheese a little faster. And to serve your piglet, all you need to do is cut the sandwich in half. Here at the restaurant, we serve it in a tray lined with a bit of paper. Display your sandwich, and bon appetit.